Today we're joined by another big name in the race, the former Solicitor General from Texas, Houston resident, Ted Cruz. Ted, thanks for being here.
Chris, it's great to be with you.
So I mentioned during the break that you're quite an overachiever. You were the youngest Solicitor General in America when you were there for 5 years, back in 03 to 08. You're the first Hispanic Solicitor General in Texas. You've done a lot. You graduated from Princeton, went on to Harvard Law School. You're a partner in a law firm. So why do you want to be a senator?
Well, I think the need has never been greater. You look at what's happening to this country. Barack Obama is the most radical president this country's ever seen. And our country is at a precipice. If we don't turn this around, we're going broke. I mean, we have spent all the money we've had, and we're on the verge of spending all the money our kids will ever have. You know, you and I were visiting a minute ago. Both of us have small children. I've got a 3-year-old and 1-year-old daughter. I don't want them to inherit a country that is broke because irresponsible politicians spent us into debt, spent us into the condition Greece and Italy and much of Europe is. And I think there's an incredible need for strong conservative fighters in Washington to turn this around.
You talk about that debt now approaching $16 trillion. What do you do? What's your game plan to get that down?
Well, you get serious about it. The problem has been, and it's been a bipartisan problem, Barack Obama has driven the greatest expansion of government spending in history, but a whole lot of Republicans went along with Democrats. And the big part of the reason Obama got elected, Republicans didn't stand for anything. In 2010, we saw a tidal wave sweep this country as the American people said enough. We don't want these timid career politicians that don't believe in anything except staying in power. We want to get back to basic principles of liberty and free enterprise and the Constitution.
We just ran a story about gas prices. You don't need to look very far to know how expensive they are. We're approaching $4 a gallon, a lot of times over $4 a gallon. You know, the president said there's not a lot he can do right now for an immediate effect. Newt Gingrich argued otherwise. If I get elected, I'm going to get it down to $2.50. Is there anything a quote-unquote politician can do to change it? What would you want to see done to get the gas prices down to a more reasonable level?
Well, you know, it's funny. Liberal politicians, they insist energy is the only market where supply and demand doesn't work. This president has waged a war on jobs, and he's waged a war on oil and gas. Now, we're seeing an explosion of new reserves being discovered because of the technological advances in fracking, and both on the oil and gas side, it's transformed it. And yet you look at it, production is not increasing on federal lands. We've had the offshore drilling moratorium. We have the EPA abusively enforcing environmental laws. And this makes no sense. We've got the capacity within 20 years for the United States to be fully energy independent, which will have a dramatic impact on gas prices at the pump. But this president, his energy secretary, said he wanted to see $8 gas. Surprise, surprise, their policies are leading exactly in that direction.
Let's look at the polls when it comes to the Senate race, because Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst is the favorite. Some call him the heavy favorite to win. You're in second place in most of those polls and making a lot of headway in the race. What do you do to get your name recognition out there? Obviously he has it as Lieutenant Governor. You were Solicitor General, but if you ask anybody in the state, who's your Solicitor General, they may not know. That's your challenge right now, is getting people to know you, right?
Look, you're exactly right. This race, in my opinion, presents a clear, simple choice between a timid career politician in David Dewhurst versus a strong conservative fighter. And what we're seeing is conservatives uniting behind this campaign. On the grassroots level, David Dewhurst is blowing off the grassroots. Do you know he's skipped a total of 31 candidate forums all over the state of Texas? He just doesn't show up. We're building the strongest grassroots army the state's ever seen, and as primary voters hear our message, we keep surging in the polls because Texans know the stakes are too serious in Washington. We need a strong conservative and a fighter in Washington.
You know all about the Supreme Court inside and out. You've argued there several times, 9 times arguing at the Supreme Court. Right. I want to get your take on the health care conversation that happened last week, arguing the constitutionality of quote-unquote Obamacare.
Right.
It doesn't look good for it right now in terms of surviving. What's your take?
Well, I agree with you. I am cautiously optimistic. I think the argument went very, very well last week. I think there is a very good chance that a majority of the court will strike down the individual mandate, conclude that that is unconstitutional. Unfortunately, I think there's also a significant chance a majority of the court will conclude that that is severable, and what that means is you can cut it off from the rest of the 2,000 pages of Obamacare. If that happens, the result will be a mess. And what I've said from the beginning is the court case is wonderful, but the answer has always had to be political. It's going to get thrown back in the lap of Congress, which is why we need the next senator from Texas to be someone who will stand and lead the fight. Chris, the first bill I intend to introduce in the Senate is a bill to repeal every syllable of every word of Obamacare, and I'm going to lead the fight to get that done.
Looking briefly at your family history, I have a feeling you have strong feelings about immigration because your father immigrated to the United States from Cuba when he was 18 years old, didn't have a dime to his name, and became a success. What are your thoughts on immigration? Obviously, it's a hot topic here along the border.
It is a hot topic. We have a crisis in illegal immigration, and neither party's serious about solving it. It seems to me the substance of the issue is quite simple. I can state my views in one sentence. I strongly oppose illegal immigration. I categorically oppose amnesty. And I strongly support legal immigrants who come here following the rules, seeking the American dream. And you know, the amazing thing is 80% of the American people agree with those things done. You look at an issue like this, there's a clear contrast between me and David Dewhurst. David Dewhurst supported in-state tuition for illegal aliens. He supported sanctuary cities in the state of Texas. I don't agree with him on either one of those. I think we need to do everything humanly possible to secure the border. That means fences, that means walls, that means technology, and it means boots on the ground. What it takes is political will to solve the problem.
Mr. Cruz, we're out of time, but if you'd like to meet Ted Cruz, he's got an event tomorrow. He'll be at the King Street Patriots headquarters tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Go there and check him out.